Hi, my name is Arella Nagle, and I'm a sophomore here at Wakefield Country Day School. And today I have with me Mr. Tetreault, and he is, to my understanding, the director at the Ford's Theater. Would you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your role in the theater?
Sure. I have been at the Ford's Theater as the director for 18 years. Probably older than you are, I'm afraid. I started there a long time ago. And it's a great job. It's a very historic place where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. But what most people don't know is it's also a working theater. It's a historic site, and it also has very impressive education programs. So we work with teachers and students all over the country, and it's a pretty good place to work.
Thank you. So, who has been your favorite artist that you have worked with at the theater?
Oh, that's so complicated. That's like saying, who's your favorite child, right? I have worked with a lot of wonderful artists. I've had the great pleasure of working with some amazing artists, playwrights. I worked with the great Edward Albee before he passed away. I worked with Horton Foote. I worked with August Wilson. So those are some of the playwrights I've worked with. Really had the opportunity to work with some great artists, great performers, great directors, great actors, great designers. I think that those three playwrights, who probably are some of America's greatest playwrights, I would have to say I had a very close working relationship with Edward Albee. And I would say he's probably one of the most interesting, smartest artists that I've ever worked with. But I've worked with a lot of great artists, and they're all been pretty wonderful.
And you had mentioned before about all the history of the theater with Abraham Lincoln's assassination, of course. Have you ever assisted any other presidents that have come and sat in the presidential booth?
Well, that's a great question. So no president has ever sat in the presidential box since 1865. However, since the late 70s, every president since Jimmy Carter has visited the theater. And I have had the pleasure to meet President Bush, President Obama, President Trump, and I met Vice President Biden, but I haven't met President Biden yet. But it's the same person. I just didn't meet them when they were president.
Wow.
So I have worked with a number of presidents over the years.
Wow. So on the Ford's Theater website, I read that you had previously been the managing director at the Alley Theater for 10 years. So what prompted you to leave that theater and join the Ford's Theater?
A great job offer. Seriously. I was approached about 18, 19 years ago by a search firm, a headhunting firm, when I was in Houston. And they said there's this great job up in Washington and running Ford's Theater. And at the time, I worked for an organization that was what we refer to as a sort of two-headed organization. So it's an artistic director and a managing director. And it's sort of both people sort of run the organization, and you both report to the board of trustees. Ford's is organized as a single-headed organization. So there's only one person who's in charge. That's me. So that was very interesting for me. I had been at the Alley for 10 years, and the idea of being able to run both the artistic side of an organization as well as the business and financial side of the organization was very entertaining for me. The other thing is that the idea of leaving Houston, which I really enjoyed working at for 10 years, and it was a great theater and produced a lot of great work, but the ability to come to Washington to try and make theater that could change the world or at least influence important people, was an opportunity I felt I couldn't pass up. So that's why I came here.
So my favorite production at the Ford's Theater is A Christmas Carol, and I try to attend it like every year that I can. What has been your favorite production at the Ford's Theater?
Well, I will say that I have produced a version of A Christmas Carol for over 25 years. So I am very fond of A Christmas Carol. And again, that's another one of those who's your favorite child questions. So I would say that some of my favorite productions that we've ever done at Ford's were kind of on the musical side. I would say 1776 and the musical Parade, both sort of historical musicals. Shenandoah was another wonderful musical that we produced. And on the play side, I would say that we commissioned a play for Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday, and that play was called The Heavens Are Hung in Black, which was a wonderful play about Abraham Lincoln and his family life and everything, and it was really extraordinary. And a couple of other plays. I produced Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee, which was an extraordinary production. And then we also produced The Laramie Project, which is a play about Matthew Shepard. All of those plays, a lot of those plays are based on true stories. So Matthew Shepard, who was a young college student who was murdered in Laramie, Wyoming, for being gay. And we produced that play at Ford's Theater, and it was really extraordinary. And it was very powerful and got a great deal of attention. And also, during that play, I had the pleasure of working with Matthew's parents, Judy and Dennis Shepard, who are extraordinary people and just two people that I really admire, who were handed a terrible tragedy in their life, but were able to turn that into something good. And they created the Matthew Shepard Foundation, which really fights against hate all across the globe, but primarily here in the United States.
Wow. And just out of my own curiosity, how has COVID impacted the theater? Because, like I said, I try to see A Christmas Carol every year, and it was shut down for COVID. And I noticed that the cast drastically changed. There was still the actor of that played Scrooge, but a lot of the other characters were gone.
Well, I mean, COVID has just been horrible, and I'm sure you all have experienced that yourself here. You know, it's been a real challenging 2 years to try and figure out how do we maneuver around this, sort of worldwide crisis that we've been handed. And, it's been a struggle at times. It's been a revelation at times. It's been interesting. One of the things, talking about Christmas Carol, that's good that came out of the pandemic is the first year we were completely shut down and we weren't able to do anything. But we worked with the local NPR station and we were able to create a radio play that we did at Christmas time that was produced over NPR channels all across the country. So we did that the first year, and actually it's now sort of in the can, as they say, and recorded, and we're able to use that every year.
Do you still charge admission price to listen to
No, it's completely free, and it's something that we had given. The first year we did it, we said it was our gift to Washington and the country. And so now it's something that we just do every year. And, if you can turn on radio stations out here, I'm sure you can figure out where it is. And, in Washington, D.C., they play it usually on Christmas Day. And it's something wonderful that came out of the pandemic. It might be one of the only good things that came out of the pandemic. But we are, hopefully, this coming year, back up to a full-blown Christmas Carol. So we're going to have all the kids back, and we're going to have all the songs back, and we're going to have the full production back this year. So hopefully you'll come back and see it.
I'll definitely be attending.
Okay, good.
But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for your time and traveling down from DC.
My pleasure.